The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our free webinar today on ATLASti 8 for Mac. My name is Ivana Radivojevic, and I'm the project coordinator with ATLASti in our Europe office. So what we're going to see today is a global overview of ATLASti for Mac. And so we'll see how the software looks, how it works, and how you can carry out a qualitative data analysis project using ATLASti. Now I've also put up our contact information here, and I invite everyone to take a note. If you ever have any questions about anything with ATLASti, you can always count on our support. Now, if you don't see the phone number for your country listed here, you can take a look on our website and you'll find the full list of all of the telephone numbers of our international offices. And then after seeing today's presentation, I have a piece of good news to share with all of you today. If you decide to purchase ATLASti, you can all count on a 10% discount coupon. Just send me an email and let me know, and I'd be more than happy to send that coupon along to you. So then I'd like to begin by saying, what is ATLASti? What are we talking about here today? Well, we're looking at a computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. In other words, ATLASti is a tool that we can use to facilitate our analysis of any unstructured or non-numerical data. So essentially any type of qualitative data, we can use ATLASti to identify the themes, patterns, and meanings across all of our sources of data. Now, although ATLASti won't do the analysis for you, it will certainly help. So by using ATLASti, we can make sure our analysis process stays organized, transparent, and integrated. We can also use ATLASti for teamwork. We can combine qualitative and quantitative analyses. We can carry out triangulation. And of course, we can analyze a great variety of types of data. So we can have textual data, such as interview transcriptions, or even articles. So ATLASti is also a great tool for carrying out a literature review. But aside from textual data, we can also analyze images, audio files, videos, geodata, Excel data. Maybe if you carried out a survey with open-ended responses, and then you've collected all the responses, you can also import them into ATLASti and analyze them. And you can also import tweets from Twitter and analyze that. So if you're also interested in social media data, you also have that possibility. So nowadays we count on ATLASti 8 for Windows and Mac. And any ATLASti project is fully compatible and transferable across both operating systems. So even if you yourself use both computers, or if you're in a team with mixed computers, you can count on ATLASti. Now, if you have a tablet, such as an iPad or an Android tablet, you can also download the ATLASti Mobile App, and we always provide this for free. So this can be great, maybe if you're out in the field collecting data and you want to already start coding or, noting some things on it, well, the ATLASti Mobile App can be a great companion in those cases. And in addition to this, we've also launched a brand new version of ATLASti this year, and that's ATLASti Cloud. So this is the first version of ATLASti that's fully based online. So now you don't need to download and install a software, but you just need a connection to internet, and then you can log into your account online and continue analyzing your data. Now, at the moment, ATLASti Cloud is in its beta version. And while we're in the beta version, everyone can use it for free. So if you're interested in checking it out, you can also go on our website and create an account for ATLASti Cloud and also analyze your data online. But if you want to have the full software of ATLASti on your computer with all of the tools and capabilities, then you can go ahead and purchase a license of ATLASti for Mac. Now, all of our licenses always include full functionality. That means it's a one-time purchase and you get the whole software. There's no extra charges or hidden costs that come on later down the road. In addition to this, any updates that we release to ATLASti 8 are also included for free. Now, for all you students out there, you can get ATLASti at a significantly reduced cost, and you can get this for a period of 6 months or 2 years. And then for the rest of you researchers, you can get perpetual or lifetime licenses. Now remember, whichever kind of license you decide to ultimately purchase, you can count on that 10% discount coupon. Now, on the other hand, if you want to already have ATLASti on your computer today and start using it, then you can definitely download our free trial version. So our free trial version, it's the full software. It has all of the features and tools, and there's no time limit. So you can use it for as long as you would like. The only limitation is in the size of the project that you can create. but it certainly offers an excellent way to start getting to know ATLASti and already start analyzing your own data using the software. Now, aside from the actual licenses, on our website you can also find a great variety of learning resources that we offer. For example, if you and your group of peers or students want to learn more about ATLASti, you can request a free on-demand group demo webinar. Basically, you just have to tell us what parts of ATLASti you want to learn more about, what are you interested in, and then we'll prepare a presentation personalized for you and your group. And then, of course, we can give this on any day and time that suits you and your group best. Now, if you want to learn ATLASti in even more depth, you could always attend one of our premium trainings. We offer these, every month we have different premium trainings and online and face-to-face formats. And upon completing any of our premium courses, you'll also receive an official ATLASti certificate. And so then aside from the trainings, you can also find the full manual. We also have a quick tour guide, and that's great for any first-time users of ATLASti. You can also explore our research blog, where we have a great variety of best practices articles or real-world case studies and interviews with ATLASti users. And then what I would particularly recommend are our video tutorials. So we have a short video tutorial on each of the different aspects of ATLASti. So that's also a great way to revise anything or see how you can use the software. And that being said, if you ever do have any questions or doubts, you can always count on our support. Just send us an email or give us a call, and we'll be happy to help. So without any further ado then, let's go ahead and take a look at ATLASti 8 for Mac. I'll go ahead and open it here. So this is the main window we see when we first open ATLASti. And we can create a new project right here, import an existing project, and then we can see all the projects we've already opened on this computer before, right here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and use a project that we already have analyzed a bit so we can see what it looks like in ATLASti. And in this project, we're investigating the effects of having children on parents' happiness. Now, you can find this same Children and Happiness sample project on our website. So if you want to have a project that you can use to practice with or just to kind of play around with an ATLASti, you can download this Children and Happiness sample project as well. And okay, so we're already inside ATLASti 8 for Mac now. And so we can see, as per usual, we have all the main menus up here where we can find all the different options. Now here on the left-hand side, we have the Project Explorer panel. So from this panel, we'll always be able to see and directly access any part of our project. So let's take a look. The first thing we see here are our documents. We have 45 documents in this project. So what is a document in ATLASti? Well, this simply refers to any source of information that you're going to be analyzing. So your documents are basically your data or your articles. So documents can be text documents, such as academic articles, or participant responses. In this case, we imported the responses to an open-ended survey that we conducted. And so we had 2 open-ended questions, and we can see each person's own words and how they answer these questions. But documents can also be video files or audio files. They can be Google Earth maps if you're interested in analyzing geodata. They can also be images. So any type of information we're going to analyze will add to our project as a document. And so we can see every time we open a document, ATLASti opens it in a tab here in the main working space. And then now on the right-hand side, we also have some information showing. So the panel on the right-hand side is called the Inspector panel. And this simply serves to provide more detailed information on whatever object you've just selected. So we click on the document here, and we can see this is document 48, and we see the name of the document. So this is a snapshot from the video, and we can see that at exactly what point in the video. But now the great thing about the Inspector panel is that we can also edit any of this information right here. Maybe I want to give a more descriptive name. So we can really easily edit the names of any of our documents and work, and then ATLASti will update that throughout the rest of the project. Now directly below, we can see a comment space. So what's this for? Well, every single individual object in ATLASti has its own comment space. And so this space is perfect for providing any additional, information, anything to describe or to give some context to this. So for example, if we want to write comments on our documents, we could describe here, where this document comes from. So in this case, I could say a snapshot from our video. Well, what if it's an article, like an academic article we found here? Well, if you're analyzing secondary sources, then the comment space is great for noting down the full reference of that source, so we'll always know exactly where it came from. For your primary data, you could describe where the data came from. If it's an interview transcription, let's imagine, then maybe you want to say who was the interviewer, or where was the interview conducted, or when. So just comments are for describing that particular object, and the comment will always stay associated to this specific object. So those are some of the ways that we can take advantage of this inspector panel here that ATLASti Mac has. And then finally, down below, we can also see who worked on this document and when. So ATLASti automatically keeps track of your username. And in this way, it's a great tool for teamwork because we can have more than one person working on the same project. Here we can see that Suzanne and Nettingo worked on the project. And, and ATLASti will keep track of who did what and when. So that's a little bit about the interface of ATLASti, so we understand what we're seeing here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close these tabs and clear our working space, and then let's take a look. So we've added our documents and we're ready to start analyzing. So let's open up an article here where we don't have anything done yet. So how do we analyze textual data? Well, we open up the document and we start reading. Whenever you find anything that captures your attention, something that can help you answer your research question, all you have to do is highlight that segment of the text. Now, you can highlight as much or as little as you want. You choose what segments of the data you want to analyze here. So the full power is always in your hands. And so, in this case, I'll go ahead and select, this is 2 sentences here to get a bit of context. And then we can now save this segment. So to save it, you can simply right-click or click with 2 fingers, depending on your Mac settings. And we have some different options here now we can choose. If we click on Create Quotation, we'll just save this segment. And we can see now in the margin area on the right-hand side, this blue vertical bar is showing us the size and location of a quotation in this document. So if we want to, we can just save the quotations, the segments of the data. And then, we can go through segmenting the data, and if we want, then later we can come back to it to analyze these segments. Maybe, if we don't want to already force ourselves to analyze it in depth, but just kind of highlight what captures our attention, we could certainly do that. Now, perhaps as we start reading, we want to already go ahead and start kind of analyzing this information and organizing it. And so in that case, we could go ahead and already associate codes to our quotations. So what is a code? Well, when we're talking about codes, a code can be basically a word or a short phrase that's describing something we're seeing in the data. Now, we can create as many codes as we want and any types of codes. And this is really how we're going to organize all of this information. We can also think of codes as tags that we're going to go associating to the different segments of data. So let's go ahead and add some codes here. All we do now is type in the names of the codes we want to associate here. So I can see that this is talking about the evolutionary perspective. As I started typing here, since we already have codes in this project, we already have some codes created, ATLASti is then showing if you have any codes that match the text you're typing. So great, we already have a code evolutionary perspective, so I'll go ahead and use that one. But we can also create new codes here. So let's see, a safe shelter, as well maintaining relationships. So we type whatever codes we want to associate, and we can add as many codes as we want to any single quotation. And here we have them. Now we can see the quotation and these codes that are attached. So this code here is red because we made it before and we also gave it a color. So we'll see later how we can also color our codes and organize them as well. But just, all these codes are equal. It's just that this one we happen to give a color before. And remember, the inspector panel is always going to show information on whatever you just clicked on. So if we click on a quotation, it'll show us that information. We can also rename our quotations if we want to give them different names and write comments on each specific quotation. So we really have a lot of power here to analyze in as much detail as we want. And the same goes for our codes. If we click on a code in the inspector panel, we'll see that. So this is nice because we can easily edit this information. So, maybe correct typos or to change a code as we get a better idea of what it's encompassing. What about the comment space of a code? Well, a comment space is the perfect place to describe this code. In particular, we can use this space to write out the operational definition of each of our codes. So to say, what exactly does this code refer to? And how will we know when to apply this code to a particular quotation? So operational definitions are important for transparency and for consistency in how we code the data. And so the comment space is perfect for noting down the definitions of each code. So we see how we can create new codes as we go adding them to our data here. But let's imagine we go through reading and then we come across a phrase that really stands out to us. Maybe it's something that we love the way in which the author expressed this, or maybe we want to capture the exact words of our participant. And so to capture these exact words in text, we can take advantage of in vivo coding. What in vivo coding does is it'll take that text that you select and it'll convert it into a code for you. So you just highlight that segment of the text in vivo coding, and now we have a new code here. So that's another way that we can code the data. Now, as we continue reading and selecting our quotations, so let's imagine here, once again, it's talking about having a safe shelter. And we already have the code there. And so I want to just use the code that we already have instead of having to type the name again. And well, we can very easily use any of our codes in our project. Let's go ahead and open up the list of codes. We see we have 119 codes in the project, and we can see all of them here. And there we have safe shelter. So now to associate this code to this quotation, we're just going to drag and drop. Now ATLASti saves the quotation and adds the code. So coding in ATLASti can also be as simple as dragging and dropping your codes from your list on the left-hand side. And so those are the different ways that we can code data in ATLASti. And I've been showing how to do things by right-clicking or clicking with 2 fingers. But as you've probably also noticed, you have keyboard shortcuts to do the same thing. And you can use the buttons up here. So oftentimes there's more than one way to do the same thing in ATLASti. And that's just so that every person can work in whatever way they prefer. So you can work in whatever manner you find most comfortable here to add your codes to the data. But I want to show a little bit of everything so you can all then, you know what's possible, and then later you can explore and get a feel for what feels best for you. So now we've added this article here, and we've started reading it a little bit, but to be honest, I haven't even read this article in full yet. And before getting, deep immersed into all the details and words here, I want to get a quick global overview of what this article is about. Let's conduct a content analysis. So if we want to count the frequency of words in any of our text documents, we can use the word cruncher. So from the word cruncher tool, we just select the documents that we want to analyze here. So let's see, here's the article we've opened now. And then we can already see all the words, their length, how many times they occur, and what percentage that word makes up for the document. I'm going to go ahead and reorder this so we can see the most frequently occurring words first. And so great, now we can have a better idea of what are the main concepts coming up here. But I'm not so interested in analyzing of, and, the, a. I'd rather have these excluded from this count, these common occurring words. So, okay, let's go ahead and use the stop list that ATLASti has for us. We just select English, and then we have an English stop word list, so it automatically excludes all of these, articles and words that aren't so relevant for us. Let's see, just to refresh that. And we can also add any words to our stop word list just by right-clicking and then adding them as an exception. Now, from the word cruncher, we can also analyze more than one document at a time. We can continue to select all of our text documents if we wanted to, and ATLASti will add them to the list. And we can see them as an aggregate here. And we can also see the counts of each separate document. So this is also great for making comparisons across all the different sources of information. So happiness, how many times it comes up in each of these different documents. We can already see that our third document here talks a lot about happiness in comparison to the other ones, right? And so word crusher is great for these content analyses and for getting frequencies of words. If we want to save this table, we can export it to Excel. Just by clicking here, ATLASti will open all this information in Excel for you. And then we can, continue working on it if we still want to do more quantitative analyses with the numbers. And of course, we can also create graphics, maybe if you want to include it in your final report or presentation. So then I'm actually let's take a look again at just the article we've opened now. So we wanted to get an idea of what are the main words coming up here. And so I can see, for example, personality. This is coming up 19 times here. I wonder, does this have to do with the journal? Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at what is the author saying about personality. I'm wondering, is he talking about the personality of the parents or the personality of the children? Let's go back to the document and take a look at what context is personality appearing in. So when you want to search for a particular word, you can also take advantage of autocoding. Now what autocoding does is it'll search for any word that you're interested in any text document, and then when it finds that word, it'll automatically select a quotation and associate a code for you. We just have to tell ATLASti what size quotation we want, the full sentence or the full paragraph, and what code we want attached. So here we are in the autocoding box, and I'll go ahead and say, okay, personality was what we want to look for. And every time you find this word, we have to tell ATLASti what code we want to use. Actually, I don't have a code for personality, so I'm going to go ahead and create one here right now. Personality. All right. There we have it. And then we tell ATLASti what size quotation do you want? ATLASti is saying, do you want me to just select the word or the sentence in which this word appears or the paragraph? So yeah, I want the whole sentence. And we can also either just focus on this document or analyze more than one document at the same time. So we click Next, and ATLASti already found the word and it's highlighted the sentence in which it appears. And so now we can decide whether or not we want to code this. So now in this case, it found personality in a reference, and so I'm not so interested in coding that. So I'll go ahead and go on to the next find. So it seems that, yeah, this is what I was afraid of, that maybe personality is just appearing in the references. But if we wanted to, we could code this by clicking on code. So we can decide if we want to go next or go back to the previous one. So we can really easily filter through all of the text and identify where this word is occurring. Now, if we click on Code All, ATLASti will go ahead and automatically code every time it finds the word personality. Now, since this wasn't such an interesting autocoding example for us, let's go ahead and look for maybe another word, children. All right, so now we're finding things in the article. So let's see here. So that we can code if we want, everything that we're finding. And so we can easily filter through, or we can just have everything already coded, and then we can go through and revise these quotations. If we want to change the size of any of them, or add any more codes, of course, we can continue to drag and drop. And so we can see now we have a lot of different quotations. And we can have overlapping quotations. So ATLASti is really flexible in this sense. We can really segment the data in whatever way we prefer. Maybe we also want to delete some of these quotations if we're not so interested in them. So as we can see, autocoding, the autocoding tools and the content analysis tools, these can be really helpful at the beginning parts of any project. Maybe when you want to explore your data and kind of get an idea of what there is in there and what context this is all coming up in. Now another thing, as we go through analyzing here, so we're reading all this text and all this information, and well, this is great, really interesting for my research, but I have a lot of ideas in my head as well. Things that this author is saying, I have some idea, some questions and things that I want to note down, right? I want to write down some notes and my thoughts here. So whenever you want to write anything in ATLASti, you can use a memo. A memo is essentially a notebook. A memo is a blank space that we can use to write down anything that we would like. So we already have some different memos in this project, but let's go ahead and create a new memo here. So ATLASti opens up a new memo for us, and it's just a blank text space, and just like any other text writing program, we can change the font or style and so on. And so we can use memos to write our reflections and analyses, to take note of any of our ideas or questions or doubts that come up. We can also use memos just to keep a note of what tasks we have to do every day, or to maintain our research diary. I mean, the uses of memos are nearly endless, so I certainly encourage you to also be creative in how you use memos for your own project. You decide, maybe you want a memo for each source of data or a memo for each concept, or it's up to you to decide. But definitely, I encourage you to take advantage of memos because, by putting our thoughts into words, we really start to crystallize our ideas and understand them better. That's an important part of analyzing qualitative information. And also, by writing out our analyses right here, then we're also already elaborating the rough drafts of our final paper. And so then when it comes up to making the final paper, we'll just look at all our memos and put the information together. And that's it. But we have the majority of the work already done right here in ATLASti. So now I could say, I find it interesting that Yubomirsky and Boehm, so since I included the author name and year in the title of the document, now it's really easy to cite this source. It's also just a little tip for organizing your data well. Talk about, I don't know, let's say safe shelters and so on, Okay, in reality, here's where I would take some minutes to actually stop and think and note down my ideas. But let's go ahead and say, okay, so we have our reflections noted down here, and we can continue. But wait, actually, this memo that we wrote here, the reflection we wrote in there, has to do with this quotation here. Now, before I go on and continue making more quotations and more information, I want to make sure that I'm going to remember that this memo is talking about this quotation. So, just like we associate codes to quotations, we can also associate memos. So here's that memo we just created now. And now to add it to this quotation, we're going to do the same thing we did before. Just drag and drop it. And now we can see the memo here. We can get a preview of it and open it again to continue writing. And in fact, I see I forgot to rename this memo to give it more of a descriptive name, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just name it for the document. So I know this memo is about that document. And there we have it. So the fact that we can associate memos to quotations is a really great feature because we can already, not only are we already elaborating our analyses of the data here, but we can directly associate it to the empirical evidence that's supporting our analysis. And then later, when we're putting our article together, we can gather all of our reflections and everything that we wrote, and we can already see the relevant quotations attached to it right there. So this is the foundation of analysis in ATLASti. We code the data, and we write in our memos and associate the memos to the quotations as well. So those are different ways that we can work with textual data. Now, what about if I want to analyze a video or an audio file? Let's look at how we can analyze multimedia data. Let's open up our video that we have here. We've imported a short video that's interviewing a family. I'll even go ahead and get rid of some of these quotations here. Okay, so from ATLASti, of course, we can watch the video and listen to it or listen to our audio.
When it comes to natural parenting, Adele
and then we can analyze directly on this data, right? We can analyze the video and audio straight away. Now, if you have an audio file, you're going to have the exact same interface and practice here. The only difference is that you don't have an image in the center. So now how do we analyze multimedia data? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to select quotations, segments of the video, and associate codes and memos. So to select a segment of video, we'll just go to the right-hand side here where we have the timeline next to our margin area. And all you have to do is click, drag, and drop. And then ATLASti saves this quotation. Now we can easily revise this by double clicking on it.
Some would say quite.
And ATLASti will play exactly this segment. And so we can, maybe if we want to change the size a bit or move it around, we can easily do so. And how do we add codes now? Well, just like always, we can right click, use the shortcuts, the buttons above, and we can of course also just directly drag and drop our codes from the left-hand side. Oh, and same goes for our memos. Very important memos for qualitative analysis, because we also need to reflect on why did this quotation capture my attention? Why did I attach these codes to this quotation? And that's it. So we click drag and drop to make our quotations. If you prefer to manually mark the start and stop points of each quotation, you can also do so using the buttons here. And for really getting into your analysis of videos and audios, it's good to know that you can also change the playback rate if you wanted to go faster or slower, and the size if you want to expand it. And if you're analyzing videos and you also want to analyze the visual aspects of what's going on here in the video, then we can turn this into an image. We can create a snapshot. So by clicking here, ATLASti basically just takes a screenshot of what you have paused on the video, and it's added this as a new image document. So I'm going to go to my list of documents, and we can see we have a new document here. Let's open it up, and now this is an image file. So creating snapshots is great for analyzing, in more detail any part of your videos. So then for images, how do we analyze it? Well, again, we're going to select segments and associate codes and memos. So just click drag and drop to highlight the part of the image that you want to capture here. And just like always, we can save the quotation, we can add our codes and our memos. And remember, we can create as many quotations as we want, and our quotations can be overlapping, so we can really go into as much detail as we may want to do here. And so that's how we can analyze different types of data in ATLASti. So then we've gone through and looked at a lot of data here, and we've gathered a lot of information. And let's say now I'm at the part of my project where I'm writing up about everything that we found about this relation between children and happiness. Do children increase or decrease happiness, or it's the same, or it's not even related? I want to see everything we found here. Let's go ahead and export a report. We're going to tell ATLASti, show me all the quotations and memos that we have on the information here. So to export a report, we'll go ahead and open the Codes Manager. So we have the Code Manager, of course, under the Code menu. We also have a shortcut, and you also have some other shortcut buttons. You can also click here on Codes, and it'll open it up. And you can even double click on Codes and from the left-hand side, and we can also open the manager in that way. So again, just so you know, but it doesn't matter if you click here, here, or up here, you're always going to open the same Code Manager. And so what do we see now? Well, we have our full list of codes, and we can see more detailed information on each of the codes. So if we click on any code, down below, we can see all the quotations associated to this code. So we can already see the preview here, but if you want to see, maybe, okay, I can read this quotation, but I can't remember who was it that said this? Which document did this come from? I want to see the context before and after this quotation, because of course, context is important in qualitative analysis. And ATLASti always keeps us close to the data. You just click on the arrow here, ATLASti will open up that quotation back in its original document, so we can see that full context of this quotation. So we can always easily revisit quotations. Now on the right-hand side, we have the same inspector panel. So the same thing here. If we want to edit the name, edit our operational definitions, we can also see the quotations here. If you just want to double click to see a quotation, you can also do that. Who worked on this quotation and when. And we can also see this this code belongs to some groups. So on the right-hand side, we can see all of our code groups. So creating groups is a great way to organize your codes. And as we can already see, any single code can belong to more than one group. So we can really use groups to organize all this information whatever way we prefer. So to group any codes, just select the codes that you want to group together, and then drag and drop them on the left-hand side. And it creates a new group, and we can now give a name to this group. So maybe, I don't know, family. And we can add codes to any group that already exists just by dragging and dropping them in. And so the groups are a nice way to organize this information. Now, what about if we want to add colors to our codes? Well, just click on the little circle here next to the code, and you can choose a color. Now, as you may have also guessed, you can also edit the color directly from the inspector panel. So in any moment, if you want, you can select a color right there as well. But okay, so we open up the code manager because we wanted to see all the information we have on these codes here. So let's export that report. I'm going to highlight the codes because I just want to see these codes in this case, and I don't want to see all of the information. And then we can either export this as a table, in which case ATLASti is going to open it in Excel, or we can export it as a report, a text report. And so then we can save that as a Word or PDF document. Since I want to see all the quotations, I'm going to go ahead and do a report because I like to see it in a text document instead of all in tables. And okay, so already we can see a preview of the report right here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we just tell ATLASti what information we want included in the report. Do you want to see the comments, the definitions of all the codes? Well, yes, I do. That's definitely handy information to have right here. I also want to see all the quotations associated to each of these codes. And then if we click on these drop-down arrows, we can include more detailed information. So I want to see the content of the quotations. So we see the code, its definition, and it has 30 quotations associated. And so now we can see this is the first quotation, the second quotation, and we have all of the quotations in one single document. And then here's the second code in the list. And again, same thing. So reports are great for recuperating all this information and putting it into one single place. And we can really include a lot of details here, if we want to see what documents it comes from. And if we wrote the references in the documents, we can also see that right here. Maybe we also want to see, are there any memos that are linked? And if there are, then of course I want to see the content of the memos. So let's see, so we have the name of the quotation, the content, the document that it comes from. And it appears we don't have any memos associated to these quotations here. But so you can see, just checking the different boxes, and you can already see what the report's going to look like. And then we can save this on our computer. And now later when I'm writing about, the relation between children and happiness, well, we don't even have to go back into ATLASti. We can just look at the reports that we've exported. So exporting reports and tables is a great way to recuperate our results, and also if we want to share them with others. And we can get creative with the kinds of reports and tables that we make. For example, if I want to attach my code book as an appendix to my study here, so I want to attach a code book showing all the definitions of all the codes in this project. Well, then we can just go ahead and export this information as a table. And so wait, let me make sure that we have all of them selected. And so by saving this in Excel, since we wrote all the definitions in the comment space, well, now I just export this table, and then I'll have a nice table with each code and its definition, and then that's my code book done. The same goes for the bibliography. If you wrote out your references in the comment space of all your documents, you can export your bibliography just by exporting a report. So this is also a really, really helpful features. Same with if we want to, here's the definition. If we want to share our work with others, or, if we are working in a team and we want to all use the same code list, then we can create the code list in Excel or just export from one project, and then all the others can import this into their own ATLASti. And so those are some of the different ways we can export our work from the software. Now, I also want to visually explore what we've been finding here. We have a lot of different concepts here, and they're all related in different ways, and I want to draw out these relations. So let's create a network. So now I want to use this network to explore the different ways of defining happiness that we found throughout our study. So I'll give the network the name, and now we'll add the objects. Now we can visualize any part of our project in a network. We just have to drag and drop them in. And so we have our kind of main overarching code here, in general, definitions of happiness. But then we also have these subcodes, these more specific types of definitions of happiness. And now I want to show that these codes are related to this one. So let's link them. To link any object in a network, you click on the first object, and you see a little circle appear in the corner. Now you just click on that circle, click drag and drop onto the code you want to link this to. And when you let go, you can choose a name for this relation. So I'm saying this code is a part of this code. So long-term view is a part of defining happiness. So we choose the relation name we want, and we can of course edit any of these relation names. We can also create the names that we want. Maybe as part of isn't the best way to describe this. Maybe I should say is an example of. So we could edit that. We could also edit these lines if you want to change the width or the color or the style. The networks are really flexible, so we can draw out whatever kind of network that we would like to tell the story of our data. And great, now we have a pretty simple but very easy to understand hierarchy here showing the different things we found in definitions of happiness. But I also want to include some more detailed information here, not just the codes, but can we maybe also show the definitions of the codes in the network? That way anyone who's looking at it will know what all these codes are referring to. Well, of course, we can show comments in the network, so we can directly see the definitions here. And so about happiness being subjective, I remember we had some interesting information on it, but now I can't remember what it was that people said. Now I want to refresh my memory. Let's go ahead and bring these quotations in. By right-clicking, we can add the neighbors of any of the objects in the network. A neighbor is just anything that's been associated to this object. So we go to add neighbors, and I'm going to go ahead and add the quotations. So great, now we can see all the quotations attached to this code. We can also see if the quotation has been attached to any other codes in the network. So for example, we can see here that this quotation was also coded with this code and this code. So ATLASti remembers all this work that we did and all the coding, and then it'll show us any relations, if there are any, as we open them in networks. So then we can also explore it in this way. So right now, well, we're seeing the names of our quotations. And okay, that's nice, but to be honest, I'd rather just see the full content of the quotation here. So let's go ahead and also show the previews. So great, now we can read the full text. We can see images if we have our image quotations. And nice, so now we can even illustrate, some evidence that's behind this concept here, or maybe some great quotations from our participants. And of course, we can link any of the objects in the network. So we can continue to link the quotation to other codes here. We can even carry out coding from a network. And we can also link quotations to quotations and describe how they're related. So this is great. Maybe if you want to even analyze just on the data, you don't have to work with codes. If you just want to focus on the data, you can connect this as well and, carry out your analysis. And remember, we can visualize any part of our project in a network. So let's go ahead and bring in that memo we wrote before. I also want to see the content of the memo, so let's preview it. And of course, the memo as well can be linked to any of the objects in the network too. So networks are really flexible, and we can visualize as much or as little information that we want in them. And then, this is great to include in our final report or presentation, as a way to summarize what we found here and to present our analysis in a visual way. So finally, let's take a look at how we can also use the different advanced analysis tools. We already had a look at the word cruncher before. Now let's see these other tools we have here. Let's start with the code co-occurrence table. So here, we can analyze the co-occurrences of our codes. So what is co-occurrence? Well, what we mean is the coexistence of any two codes on the same piece of data. This can be two codes on one quotation, or two codes overlapping, or directly before or after one another. But basically, we were interested in seeing which codes are appearing together, and this can help us analyze, if there's any possible emerging relations among our codes. So we select what codes we want to cross in rows and columns. So we identified a series of positive and negative effects throughout our analysis. Now I want to analyze these. So we just check the codes, and here we have them in the table now. And so what this is telling us is that this code co-occurs 4 times with this code. By clicking on the cell, we can see the quotations down below where we have this co-occurrence. And remember, we can see the quotation back in its full context as well. So, okay, we can get an idea of what concepts are coming up together a lot. Maybe it's helpful if we also make the columns a bit bigger so we can see everything. But okay, so how might we interpret this result? Well, let's take a look here. We have a relatively high co-occurrence. So between the positive effect of personal growth and the negative effect of having more worries and stress and responsibilities. Well, it seems that on 13 different occasions, these two codes are co-occurring. Now, I wonder why. This would be a moment actually to open up a memo and write out our reflections and interpretations in there. So maybe I could say, well, okay, thinking about it, maybe these two codes are coming up together so much because, in order for anyone to experience personal growth, they have to undergo more worries and stress and responsibilities. So maybe that explains this relation, why we're seeing this. So we can think, why are these two codes co-occurring so frequently? Is there some underlying explanation or some relationship between them? And then we can write out our interpretations in a memo, and then I would go through and look at these quotations, and then we can check. Does this interpretation make sense? Does it fit with the data? Maybe we need to adjust it a little bit. But the code co-occurrence table is great for kind of pointing us, giving us a chance to see where we might have these possibly emerging relations. And we can also save this table, if we want to save this result. Again, we can export it straight to Excel. And then, from there, we could also create a graphic if we want to visually present this, or just to have the table saved here. And ATLASti even analyzes the coefficient, so the coefficient of this co-occurrence, right? But this also depends on the size of your project, because if you don't have a lot of data, then the coefficients aren't really worth looking into because they're not going to be very accurate. We could have like spurious coefficients. But we can also choose what information to include here. So that's the code co-occurrence table, how we can analyze the co-occurrences of our codes, and see, are there any possible emerging relations among all our concepts? Now let's take a look at the code document table. So again, we're going to build a table in rows and columns, but this time we're looking at the frequencies of our codes. How many times is a code used in a certain document? So we can look at our individual codes, or we can work directly with the group. And the same goes with the documents. So now I want to take a look at, we also identify different reasons for having children that people mentioned, right? And so I want to see how many times each reason came up. So I'm going to select the individual codes because I want to see each one on its own. If we just wanted to see in general about all the reasons for having children, then we could just select the group. But I want to see each individual one. And now I want to see what our participants said about this. But instead of just selecting all our participants, I actually want to compare between the male and female participants. So since we use ATLASti to import our survey data, we also had ATLASti automatically group our participants according to their gender. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the groups here. And now the table is showing us that this code occurs once inside the documents in this group and twice in the documents in this group. In other words, it seems that the female participants mentioned altruism as a reason for having children once, while the male participants mentioned altruism twice. Again, by clicking on the cell, you can see the quotations down below. And great, now we have a nice global overview of where in our project the different concepts are coming up. And we can make these comparisons, to compare and contrast And so this is one of the advantages also of creating groups. If you know that you're going to want to compare between males and females, or people who do and don't have children, I wonder what will come up if we also look at this. Well, we can even see here that there's some interesting trends, those who do and don't have children, and what reasons they mention. And again, we could open up a memo here and write down our reflections and interpretations, maybe explore, why is it that only men talked about, oh, I always knew that I would have children? Or why is it that only female participants mentioned unconditional love? So we could explore the quotations and decide what's going on here. And but one more thing, if we take a look at this table and these numbers we have here, well, we can see that these are absolute frequencies. It's just telling us purely the number of times this code was used. And that's nice, but that can be problematic if we really want to make accurate comparisons. Because what if in this study here, what if we had 20 female participants and only 10 male participants? Well, if we have a lot more female participants, then of course we're going to have much higher frequencies here. So the numbers are going to be skewed a bit. And so we can't really make accurate comparisons in that case, not just based on absolute frequencies. Well, fortunately, ATLASti, it's here to help us for all our analysis needs, and we can automatically normalize these counts, in which case ATLASti takes into consideration the size and the amount of data here, and it normalizes the number so that we can indeed make accurate comparisons. We can also look at relative frequencies. Do you want to look at the relative frequency in the column, or of the row, or the whole table? So we can select here. Maybe I want to see the frequencies, of what all male and female participants said. So I'm going to go and select column. Now we can select all of these at once, but I'm just going to select one here so we can just see how this works. And so, now we can see of the female participants, 30% of the responses have to do with unconditional love. While with male participants, what was one of the least occurring ones? For oneself, cultural embedded beliefs, or biology, only 11% of the time. While these other ones were more frequent. So relative frequencies help us make even better comparisons between things. So the code document table is great for analyzing frequencies of codes and looking at it in all these different ways. And we can focus on any different part of our project. And of course, we can also save this table by exporting it to Excel. And so with that, we've seen, our global overview of ATLASti 8 for Mac. And so now you know how to start a project, add your data, analyze your data by selecting quotations and associating codes and memos, creating networks to explore the connections across everything. And we can use the different tools to interrogate our data in different ways. So then now we can take time for any questions that anyone may have. And I'm also putting up again our contact information here. So please feel free to take a note. If any questions come again at any point in the future, please count on our support. We'll always be happy to help.